Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to the Chef Yusuf Show, where we learn to cook the Islamic way. You know, this Ramadan is going to be the hottest Ramadan in 33 years. So what a better way to break your fast with a cool soup. Cold soups comes from Spain. This is called Gazpacho. The interesting thing about today's soup that is number one is cold. Number two, it uses a new thickening method, thickening the soup. And also the topic of Al-Andalus. I want this topic to be in the mind of every Muslim in their history books, inshallah. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay, before we get into the topic of Gazpacho, Spain, Andalus and all that history, let's go ahead and get the method of making Gazpacho. You learn how to make the method, you can make any type of Gazpacho your style. This is just like making your own drink. You can pick and choose whatever you want and customize it the way you want. The secret to make a good Gazpacho soup is a nice tomato. The sweeter the tomato, your local tomato, the sweeter your tomato, the better it will taste. These Roman tomato, they are tasteless, you know what I'm talking about, right? The cheapest tomatoes. So try to get maybe the cherry tomatoes, the sweetest tomatoes that you can find. This is the base foundation of any good Gazpacho. We have the category of peppers, red pepper, green pepper, do whatever pepper you want. We have the cucumber. As you can see, I have the English big cucumber and I have the Ayatollah cucumber, the Persian cucumber. And we have also the category of onions. We have yellow onions, we have scallions, we have green onions, whatever onions you want. And we have the seasoning, salt and pepper and oil and vinegar, very important oil, olive oil. And for our thickening agent, this is going to be a surprise to you. We have some bread and some toasted bread to garnish on top. And of course, we don't want to forget the garlic, just a little bit of garlic. I have the whole garlic out here. And this is the base of making a Gazpacho. Whatever you want to add additionally is really up to you. The spices, if you are crazy about a certain spice, if you like it to be spicy, that is also up to you. So this is the base foundation. So let's go ahead and get started chopping these things. And to make Gazpacho, let's go back medieval time. How did they used to do it? Because today, if you watch a recipe like on maybe YouTube or something, they put everything in a blender and they blend it. You can do that. Actually, that's what we will probably do. Let's go ahead and show you how easy this is. So just like making a V8 juice, you blend everything, you want to chop everything, you can do that. But there are few things that you have to be aware of. You know, when you puree tomatoes, you get that white, you know, the tomato becomes like creamy and foamy, and then it does not taste as, you know, tomato sauce. Something was wrong with it. Something went wrong with the tomato. I asked many chefs, sometimes they told me when you use the food processor, don't allow the blade to go a full circle. But really, I try that on my own. It always gets foamy. It always gets, it becomes different. So back in time, they used to use a device called, today we call it mortar. I don't know if I'm pronouncing this right, but this is the same device when you crush the garlic. Remember that stuff, you crush the garlic, you have like a big stick like this and a bowl probably made of brass or some copper or something, and you put the garlic and you crush it. The same thing you do with it, like for example the cherry tomatoes. I'll show you how to do that. You add the cherry tomatoes, and this way you can puree and make your own type of sauce without having that, without having, you know, the creamy textures I was talking about. This is one way. Now this is, they used to probably have a big one with a big stick and they used to crush everything. Second method is chopping the tomato really fine, and to do this you have to do something that we did in the sauce episode, is making tomato concasse. Tomato concasse. So this will require a few elements. First element is we want to peel the tomato and we want to core it. So we'll get our knife and you go ahead and remove the core. And for this is controversial, but you will make an X on the bottom, so this will make it easy to peel. You want to put this in the boiling water for maybe a few seconds, maybe 45, 30 seconds. I'm going to go ahead and get my boiling water, and on the side we'll have our bath of ice. And again, this is just to remove the peel from the tomatoes. And I'm going to show you, I'm going to do one right now, so I'm going to show you how it's done. You wait a few seconds. This is really extremely hot water. And when you see the skin of the tomato start to crack and start to peel off, this is where you remove it and you put it in the cold water. We're not cooking the tomato, we just want to peel it. So as you can see here, I'm going to show you right now. You see how it's cracking right here? That should be enough. Let's go ahead and put it in the cold water. We'll do this with the rest of the tomatoes. Okay, so we'll go ahead and get the knife. And what you want to do is you want to cut the tomato not a long way but sideways. And this way you will see the heart of the tomato, right? And you see the seeds. And it will make it easy for you to squeeze it and remove the seeds. And of course, you don't want to waste all of that good juice that's coming out. This will go back into the gazpacho. You got it right. You know, this reminds me of a post that I saw on the internet that somebody posted on Facebook, that do not eat the tomatoes because it is a Christian, it's a Christian fruit. And why? Because they show you the tomato and it's like, look at the cross, you know, the cross in the in the middle of the tomato. And they quote the hadith, not the hadith, but some lady had a dream about the Prophet ﷺ crying because his ummah is eating the. I mean, this is nonsense. Seriously, who comes up with this stuff? They should put them in jail, right? So the juice of the tomato, you're gonna go ahead and take this stuff. This is really good stuff. Make sure all of the juices are extracted from the seeds. And you can see here, this is delicious juice that will go with the tomatoes themselves. I'm just doing it here just to show you the method. You don't have to do this. You can just use it. Use the blender. The blender method will be probably done by now. Now, using a really smooth, small chop method, we'll go ahead and chop the tomatoes. So we have really smooth tomatoes without having that white foamy thing that we get when we puree the tomatoes. I'll show you how that will look when we puree the grape tomato over here. So we're done with the tomato. The other ingredients as well, we'll go ahead and chop them as small as we can. If you want to use the blending method, we'll go ahead and do that. We have some onions here. I'll use the green onions for my gazpacho. So we'll go ahead and add maybe 3. Many will skin the cucumber just because of the texture. And the peppers itself, I'm gonna use half and half. Some greens, some of the red, and the garlic, just maybe 1. So we are done. We put some oil, of course olive oil, Spanish olive oil, Spanish organic olive oil, and little of the vinegar. Vinegar, it will have the acidity. It will replace the lemon. You don't have to put lemon, but don't put too much. This will overwhelm it. You can add some later afterwards. And in the meantime, let's go ahead and puree this. We'll use our magic bullet over here. And this is why people will add water. Now, water is going to come importantly because in order to successfully puree everything, water will make your life easier. So this is why they add the water. They add the water to make sure everything can be pureed smoothly. Just a little bit of water. And of course, you can add more water if you want to make your soup more soupy, I guess. So let's go ahead and puree this, and let's just watch the tomato, how it will develop to that foamy thing I was telling you about. This is what I'm talking about. Can you see it? Okay, after we blend it, go ahead and add it with our tomatoes. And just want to move this out of the way. At this point, we'll go ahead and add some of the seasoning, add some salt, and this will help break everything down further. You will need to add more salt later on. And the bread itself. So here's my bread. I'm going to go ahead and just take the white part of the bread out. We have our white bread over here. We'll add some water with it. And believe it or not, this is what is the thickening method of the gazpacho soup. So your gazpacho, as you can see, it is thick enough. It used the blending method to blend or to thicken the soup. Using the bread itself, it will thicken it even further if you wish to. If you want it lighter, you can add water. This is only one of the few cases when we add water instead of stock. But this is the method that I was telling you about, using the bread itself to thicken the soup. This is really interesting concept. So we'll add a little bit just to test it out to see how it will turn out like. Let's go ahead and puree it further. And go ahead and pure everything in a bowl. You don't have to filter this. So here we go. Gazpacho, using the bread, the vegetable, the pureed vegetable and pureed bread for extra thickening agent. So now, after you are done pureeing, after you're done crushing and cutting and everything, you put everything in a pan or a container. You put everything in a container, you cover it, and you put it for the refrigerator. You want to put it in the refrigerator to cool it down. At the same time, allow hours and hours for the vegetable just to kind of blend in and infuse with the flavors and everything else. Keep it in the fridge. The colder it gets, the better it gets. Some people like to add ice with it. And it's interesting, really interesting for the hot summer Ramadan, at the time of iftar, to have this. Is really interesting. You should try it. You should definitely try it. I'm gonna go ahead and just put it in a serving bowl. This is my ghetto way of doing things. Brothers and sisters, ladies and gentlemen, I present to you my version of gazpacho. I hope you enjoy this. And this is our bread crumbs or toasted bread that goes on top. This is our version of the THAREED, the favorite meal of the Prophet ﷺ. THAREED is the crushing of the bread on top of the soup. Let me go ahead and close up in the camera over here. Serve this in Ramadan, serve this at the time of iftar, serve this anytime you want. Just a seasoning, add some pepper and the spices that you like. If you like it on the kick to give it like a heat, go ahead, add your cayennes and the red peppers and the Tabasco or whatever. If somebody asks me a question, what if I open a V8 can and mix it with bread? Would that be considered gazpacho? Why not? Who makes the rules? You are your own chef and your own cook in the house. You can write your own cookbook. Who cares? You try it and see what you come up with. Okay, so the interesting thing about gazpacho is the history of it. Where did it come from? You know, we see some ingredients like onions and garlic and the bread. They are from the Arab at the time when the Muslim came to Al-Andalus. But also we see tomatoes. Tomatoes came from Spain when Columbus came back. So there is a lot of influences from all different types of the world, but there is no doubt that it came from the south side of Spain, which was the Al-Andalus. And also another cold soup that came up from there, which is the cousin of the gazpacho, is the Abu Blanco, which is the white gazpacho side, which is made instead of tomatoes. We use almonds. A lot of the restaurants, you know, Spanish restaurants, they like to put some wine and some vinegars and weird things, mix them together. So this will make the soup unlawful. So you can make it at home with halal ingredients, your local shop, whatever. The fresher it is, the better it is. So I do hope that you enjoy today's dish. And when we come back, we're going to talk about some of the history of Spain. In the previous episode, we talked about Yusuf ibn Tashafin, how he saved Al-Maghrib, and he went on to save Al-Andalus. And we're going to go ahead and discover that when we come back after the break. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome back to the Chef Yusuf Show, where we learn to cook the Islamic way. Today we're going to take some time out and talk about some important events of Islamic history. Since we're talking about the topic of Spain, the soups in Spain, I thought let's go ahead and share some of the history that happened in Islamic Spain, which was the famous lands of the Al-Andalus. In the last episode, we talked about Yusuf ibn Tashafin, the great leader who united the lands of Morocco, and he spreaded justice and he spreaded knowledge and civilization, basically. And what happened? The letters and from Al-Andalus start pouring in to come and aid them at the time when the Crusaders were taking back the lands. What happened is letters from Al-Andalus came Yusuf ibn Tashafin to come to help us, to aid us. There were 22 states in the Al-Andalus by itself, and they were torn apart. Every state had its own corrupt leader, and they wanted to gain, they were like lost in worldly desires, and they were weakened and they were divided. So they wanted help from this great leader. What he did, Yusuf ibn Tashafin, the most important thing is he gathered the scholars and he did something called a shura, which is to consult the scholars, to consult the people, the advisors, and all of them with a consensus. They said that we do have, it is an obligation for us to go and help our brothers and sisters who are in need of our help. So in the year 479, Yusuf ibn Tashafin, he called the call for jihad, and he gathered the troops and he gathered the ships. And they say that when he first started to sail, a huge storm came by and it made sailing extremely difficult. So Yusuf ibn Tashafin, it is a famous story that he made his dua. He called for Allah Azza wa Jal, and he said, "Oh Allah, if you know that this trip has good in it for the ummah and for myself, make it easy for us to pass. And if you know that there is an evil behind this trip, make it so difficult for us so we won't be able to pass." See, this is interesting. He was a personality who wanted the nusra for the deen. He wanted victory for the deen. So he arrived in Al-Andalus, and Muslims in Andalus, when they knew he arrived, they were happy. But at the same time, the Crusaders, when they knew his arrival, it shook them. It shook them, and the leader, Alfonso VI, at the time he was the leader of the Crusaders, he wrote to Yusuf ibn Tashafin a long letter. He said how powerful he is and how mighty he is, and the troops, and how much power, and so on and so forth. So Yusuf ibn Tashafin, he flipped the paper over and he wrote three words for Alfonso VI. He said in الذي سيكون الذي يكون ستراه, whatever will happen you will see. So this is how shocking his words were. Very short. He wasn't really about big talks and going on TV and talking about democracy and spreading freedom, and in the back, he sends drones and kill innocent people. He wasn't about that. He was leading the army from the front and not from the back. Okay, it is an important date, 479 Hijri. It was a day of Friday. The greatest and most important battle in Islamic Spain history ever occurred. The Battle of Az-Zallaqa. Leading it, Yusuf ibn Tashafin from the front, waving his swords, getting his men excited, getting them, motivated to go and struggle in the path of Allah. And on the other side were European, from France, from Spain, Crusaders, with the leadership of Alfonso VI, and it was a bloody and gory battle, a very famous battle in Islamic history. With the help of Allah Azza wa Jal, and with the help of this man, leadership and generalship, the Muslims, alhamdulillah, gained victory. Today, we are torn apart, just like the Andalus was torn apart. Today, we have 22 states just in the Arab lands. But remember, the situation in Al-Andalus was even worse. There was 22 states in Andalus by itself. So yes, we are torn apart, but do not ever do not ever lose hope. Always have hope that to unite the Ummah, to gain victory, just like what happened in Al-Andalus. There is more to the story of Yusuf ibn Tashafin. I have to leave it up to you to go and research the subject, research this great man, this great history. And there's a lot of events that happened, especially in the same day of the victory. The victory or the happiness did not last long because his son died the same day. back in Morocco, so he had to went back and he had a different strategy to come back and dissolve all of these small states and small leaders. An interesting event happened with the scholars. They came together and they made a fatwa to remove these leaders or remove these small leaders and do a bay'ah under one imam. This is an important lesson for today's situation, and I'm surprised myself, how come I never grew up learning about these great personalities? How come it's not in the textbooks in history? We never heard of Yusuf ibn Tashfin. It was something, you know. So it's amazing. So it is a responsibility for especially the mothers who really watches the cooking show. I know this is a really off topic, but really I wanted to reach to you because your future generation, you are the teacher of the future generation. Get them motivated with great personalities, great creative and awesome people that we can look up to. Let's learn about Yusuf ibn Tashfin and let's teach our kids, inshallah. I hope you learned something today. I hope you liked today's show. Please go ahead and subscribe to us, comment if you have any corrections or any comments or questions, and we will see you next time with another dish, with another soup, with another hadith with the Chef Yusuf show. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.